All right, so welcome. My name is Jackie Wallen, and I am the Associate Director of Counseling Services at Youth Crossroads. And I'm joined with Meghan Meyer, who is the school psychologist at Morton East High School in District 201. And we are here to talk with you a little bit about COVID and parenting through COVID and how to support yourself and your family in the midst of all of this. I do want to say before we get too much into the weeds here is just, and this is something I stole from Facebook, as a lot of wisdom comes from, is this analogy of a storm. And so I've heard a lot of people talk about how we are all in this together, which I agree with, but I want to recognize that we are not in the same boat. And what I mean by that is we're in the storm of COVID, and our worlds are being turned upside down. Grocery shopping is different. People are wearing masks. People are concerned. But we are not in the same boat. There are some people who are enjoying maybe some time with their family, a different change of pace, catching up on house projects, redecorating, potty training kids, all sorts of things like that. But there are other people who are really struggling. Their ship may be capsizing. They may feel financial burdens, there may be job loss, they may be experiencing themselves or the people that they love some very significant health issues. They are maybe dealing with loss. And I think it's just important to recognize that we're all in different situations right now. And so I don't want to minimize any of anyone's experiences, but just to recognize that it's all part of this conversation. And so during this presentation, what I would like for us to do is just to extend some grace to the people around us, to recognize that their situation may be different than ours, but to come together and to learn how to take care of one another better, to take care of the people that we love, and to take care of ourselves in this. For the purpose of this presentation, I just want to emphasize there is this group chat feature in the right-hand side of your screen. If you're unfamiliar with it, you go to the bottom and select chat, and you can write questions or comments in that chat box, and we'll address it. Or feel free to unmute yourself, and you can ask your question as well. So along this lines of we're sort of experiencing this differently. In addition to our own personal experiences, even our emotions and our feelings related to this pandemic can be really conflicting, I think. And so what I would like for everyone to do in that chat box is to write 2 different emotions that you're feeling right now as it relates to this pandemic. So, and I took this idea from Brene Brown, who's listed in our resource list at the very end. Because oftentimes we have these different feelings, and while they may seem like they're at tension and you can't have them both at the same time, oftentimes, especially these past few months, we do have these conflicting sort of emotions. So we might feel really grateful for our own health, or the fact, for those of us that live in the Cicero-Berwyn area, or, anywhere here really, we may be thankful if our house didn't flood or our basement didn't flood. But we might also feel anxious, right? We may feel really grateful, but really anxious because we're worried about our health, or we're worried about the health of the people around us. So I see some people wrote in the chat, so stressed and too busy, overwhelmed and grateful. I think for me, I am feeling both disconnected from a lot of the people that I love right now, but also just really thankful to be in a house with people that I do love as well. So Meghan, how about you? What would you say are your 2 emotions?
I would say exhausted. I just feel that even though we're home more, I've just been very exhausted and depleted, but also grateful to have my health and my family's health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. So people are asking me, and I should have explained. So as a counselor, I've been doing individual counseling with people throughout the pandemic, and I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings over the past couple months. And people have continually asked me, what is normal? What should I be feeling? Or is this normal? Am I alone in feeling this way? And I just want to say that really the gamut is normal in a pandemic. So for some people, they're feeling really depressed or lethargic. They are feeling overwhelmed. They just want to lay in bed and pull the covers over their head. And energy is really hard to come by, and they just are exhausted. That's normal. Others, feel like their mind is going a mile a minute. They are focusing on all the things that could go bad in this world. They are feeling very anxious, overwhelmed. That's really normal. Some people, I would say my husband is one of these people, when they are in this kind of situation, they are all about organizing, getting things done. They're very motivated. I compare this to when I was pregnant and that desire to nest. And so I think it's about control. It feels like the world around us is falling apart. And so where can I have control? I can organize my refrigerator. So it has been Cloroxed, it has been wiped down, it is spick and span, because that makes me feel like I have a little bit of control in my life. There's other people who, may be avoiding this or in complete denial. They are choosing not to think about this as much as possible. So they're not watching their news. They're not thinking about it. They might be going on like life is normal and as usual, or they just might be avoiding any sort of conversations about this. And there's, a lot of people talk about just this overall sense of fear and worry. So really any feelings that people are having is normal. And I think it changes, day by day, hour by hour, depending on what's going on in your world around you. So one of the things that I like to talk about, and I spend a lot of time talking about professionally, is common reactions to stress and trauma. And I have this worksheet that I normally pass out. And basically it shows on the worksheet, there's 5 different columns, and each column is labeled physical, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, and spiritual. And what I like about this worksheet is it describes how when people experience something stressful or something traumatic, it impacts so many different areas of our life. And I would say that is true as well for this pandemic or COVID-19 that our world is going through right now, which is a traumatic situation. So let me talk a little bit about each one of these categories. So we'll start with physical. So physical reactions are very common. So a lot of people will talk about headaches, muscle pain, difficulty breathing, trouble sleeping, restlessness. So their bodies physically are experiencing symptoms of the stress and trauma that the world is under right now. For other people, maybe they're experiencing more emotional symptoms or reactions. So they may feel sad, they may be worried, they may be anxious or irritable. I see a lot of people getting really angry when they're driving in their car, or they're getting frustrated with their children or their spouses or things like that. So their baseline is more agitated or angry. Overwhelmed, denial, or suspicious. As I'm going through this, sorry, I meant to say this earlier, but if you guys can type in the chat, where do you see your body responding? In which category? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it behavioral, cognitive, spiritual? So while I'm talking, you guys can do that, type in that box. For some people, they're seeing a lot of behavioral changes. So you might find yourself having more energy, where you, again, like my husband, doing those work projects around the house. Some people may feel like, wow, I have no energy anymore. I'm just overwhelmed, just trying to get through the day sometimes. You may see changes in your eating or your drinking. You may be eating more. Those double stuffed Oreos keep calling my name, in the kitchen. Or you may find yourself drinking more. I think oftentimes, in society, we talk a lot about those moms and their wine at night. Are you drinking more? Are you drinking more frequently in greater quantities? Are you withdrawing from the people around you? Are you just too exhausted? Are you on hyper alert? Are you, constantly on edge, constantly looking for danger, looking for disease all around you? Some people experience changes in their sexual activity, um, having more or less of it, or a greater desire or less desire. Other people have cognitive reactions, so having difficulty concentrating, difficulty focusing, having nightmares, flashbacks, staying up at night worrying about tomorrow or worrying about your friends or your family, not being able to concentrate because you have these intrusive thoughts coming in all day long, or just a general sense of confusion. I don't know how many days I'm like, wait, what day is it again? Because we're out of those normal rhythms and routines. And then spiritual. Some people are finding themselves drawn closer to God in all of this, and other people are feeling disconnected from their faith community. They're feeling anger or a crisis of faith because they're wondering why God would allow something like this to happen. So thank you, Fabiola, for putting in there. She mentioned some behavioral changes and cognitive changes where it's hard to focus and to feel very alone. I appreciate that feedback. Again, feel free to use the chat box. Colleen mentioned that she sees a lot of these different reactions, but that she's been working on really focusing on those physical things and trying to take better care of herself.
I think too, for me, I could, in every single area, I sense a change in myself. So it's also common that all of these areas may affect you, some more than others. But I could pick, as I'm listening to you talk, Jackie, every area affecting me in some way. So that's normal too.
Absolutely. And I think depending on, the day or the situation, some things will bother us differently. And just how we're handling, I've heard a lot of people talk about headaches recently, and part of that's the weather, but I think part of that's too just the stress that's going on. Yeah. So, and then as we're thinking about children too and youth, I think it's important to think about what they're dealing with and where we're seeing, these signs and symptoms in their own lives. Mm-hmm. So we want to spend a little bit of time just talking about what we can do to take care of ourselves. And I love the analogy that you see in airplanes with the parent, I'm assuming, putting on an oxygen mask on themselves before they take care of their child sitting next to them. And I think that that's really true when we think about this COVID stress. We really have to take care of ourselves so that we can be there and be present for the people that are depending on us. So there's a couple things that we can do. One is we can focus on things that we can control. So focus on the present. This is hard to do. At Youth Crossroads, we're trying to figure out a game plan for what to do over the next couple of months. And it's really hard to think, a month or 2 months down the road. Personally, I have, family members that are getting married in different states. I have, travel plans for the summer. But really trying to focus in on, okay, what can we do right now? What can I control? How can I take care of the people I love in this moment right now? Because too far down the road can just be overwhelming.
I will say, so speaking to that, in my house, what I've been trying every single day now, it's my mantra is saying, we only really focus on one day at a time, and not even one day at a time, but 1 hour at a time. So I say that to my husband and my kids every day, 1 hour at a time. We just get through this next hour. And that's kind of bringing it back to focusing on the present. But that's personally helped me because I've been so consumed and worried about what's going to be happening in the near future. So I just tried it 1 hour at a time. We just got to get through 1 hour at a time. So just something personally that's helped me.
Absolutely. So another thing that I know Megan and I have talked about, and again, this is coming from Brene Brown, is just an attitude of gratitude. I think it can be really easy to just think these very negative and anxious thoughts. And what happens is we just start to spiral, and we can get into this dark place where it's hard to see light and positivity because there's a lot of darkness and sadness in the world right now. But what are some things that we can be grateful for? So I know, when it's a pretty day outside, I make a point to go outside and go for a walk. My son and I, we went for a walk around the block the other day and we picked some lilacs and put them in a little vase. So yesterday when it was rainy and gross all day long, I still had these pretty lilacs to look at. And he'd bring them over to me and be like, Mom, smell them. They smell so good. And so just what are some things that you can do to be grateful and to practice gratitude in your personal life? I think the next thing, and this one's hard for me, I'll be honest, is to have realistic or lower expectations of ourselves and of others. We are not functioning in business as usual right now. And I am a people pleaser and I'm a perfectionist and I have very high standards for myself and the work that I'm doing, for my role as a mother and a daughter and a sister and a friend and a wife. And so recognizing that I can't be functioning at the same level because like the world's a mess right now. And so I just need to give myself some grace. And when I give myself some grace for not being the best that I normally am, that allows me to give grace to the other people around me who may not be at their best either. So, and then I think just recognizing that we can still give back to others. There are ways that we can love on people, whether that's our neighbors, whether that's, family that live in other parts of the world, whether that's coworkers, whether that's our children. Are there ways that we can really encourage, love and kindness? Megan, do you want to talk about any examples of this that you've seen?
Yeah, so something I know my family and some of my nieces and nephews are done. We have been sending postcards. We have the kids, our kids kind of draw and create postcards, and we're sending them to medical facilities, to the doctors and nurses. So we're trying to show our, gratitude to them and really help make their days better. But it's really cool for the kids to do something positive and know that the doctors and nurses are working really hard and trying to, make their days better. So that even simple things like donating to food pantries or asking your neighbors or if they're okay, or if you are going to get groceries, seeing if your neighbors need anything, like little things like that. I just help you feel better that you're trying to help others through this dark time.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah, I go to the Tony's on Harlem and Cermak, and there's this one guy who always works in the produce section. And I always say hi to him and we chit chat a little bit. And so I was asking him how he was doing and how his family was doing. And he just got very emotional when I was asking him. And he's like, thank you so much for just showing concern, like just asking me about my family. That means so much. And I think just people want to know that they're not alone in this and that we're appreciating them and thinking about them. So I think that's a good example. And then, this next one, sorry, one more.
Okay.
These are just some tangible things. And Meg and I are going to kind of go back and forth talking about this. And these are just some tips that have helped us. And there's a lot of articles that have been written about this. Little steps that you can do to help you and your family take care of yourselves through this. And what I would like you to do in the chat, if you can just put what numbers you think you can work on in this next week. So don't put all of them, just let's be realistic here. Give ourselves something attainable, but just maybe pick one or two that you want to work on over the next week. So you want to start with number one?
Yeah, so we'll just kind of quickly go through them. One big one is trying to limit your media exposure. An example of this is, this is obviously all over the news, all over every Facebook, social media, it's articles all the time. And a lot of what we're hearing is a lot of negative. So it can be really overwhelming. I know for me, the first few weeks of this crisis, I had the news on all the time and the daily news briefs every day. And my family was sending articles all the time. And I felt it was, I was interested in all this that was going on, but it was also really increasing my anxiety and fear. So I really have limited my media exposure. If people send me articles and stuff, I choose not to read ones that I know will just really make me feel bad. I don't watch the news constantly or have it on all the time. So this has really helped my anxiety. I'm not trying to, remove myself or avoid it, but I'm just trying to really limit it. So I do want to stay informed, but I want to make sure it's not it's not negatively affecting me. So this is something personally that's really helped me, limiting what you're watching and what you're reading and how much you are.
Yeah.
Staying
And I
connected. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and people have different thresholds. You know, you can have people who are news junkies and can read it all the time, and are better at compartmentalizing. And then people like myself, I'm a terrible compartmentalizer. I compare my husband as a waffle. When you put syrup on him, it like stays in a little square and doesn't touch all the other parts of the waffle. For me, I'm a pancake, and the syrup gets everywhere. And so when I read the news or something happens significant in my life, it sort of affects every single part of my life. And for him, you know, he can keep that in a nice little square, a waffle square. So
Definitely.
staying connected to,
Yeah. Keep going.
so staying connected to family and friends, I think, you know, doing things like this, Zoom calls with, you know, family members, Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, whatever, you know, are there ways that you can stay connected even if you can't physically be connected? Reflecting on your past, and how it can, how you have been resilient in the past, I think can be really helpful. We've all gone through stuff. You know, we've all been through challenges, and this is a very different challenge than I think most of us have ever been through. But some of those same things that helped you survive some pretty difficult situations in your past are some of the things that you can lean into in this moment as well.
I think too, just making sure we're avoiding, a lot of us, when we're going through difficult situations and high stress and trauma, we try to numb out what we're feeling. And this can be through different ways. We can, you know, drink more, use substances more. We could sleep a lot, just trying not to deal with it. We could binge shop or binge Netflix, you know, and a lot of us are doing that anyway to try to get through this time when we're stuck at home, but just being mindful of it, making sure we're not using it as a way to kind of deflect and to avoid what we're feeling. Because what all that's doing is suppressing, you know, our response and what we're feeling, and it's just going to add to our stress. So just being mindful of what we're doing to cope through it and making sure we're balancing things in a positive way. Our basic needs, making sure we're getting enough sleep, we're eating healthy. I know for me, sleep has been really affected through this, which usually I could always fall asleep easy, and I'm just having a lot of difficulty sleeping. And so I know that's something I need to work on personally is, and because if we're not getting enough sleep and taking care of fueling our bodies, we're just not going to be able to cope through high stress. I think really keeping somewhat of a routine, and this is difficult because our whole lives have been turned upside down. We're not even a lot of us going to work in the morning, or some of us are still going to work, but we have much different routines than we used to. And same with our families. So trying to keep somewhat of a routine in our day can help keep us like in a routine and help kind of normalize what we're going through. So little things to try to keep a routine throughout our day. Spending time outside, I know Jackie and I have talked about this a lot, is super helpful. I just read an article recently how being outside is actually the safest place to be through all this, other than your home, your home, but being outside, spending time in nature, can be really helpful because it's just getting some of that vitamin D. It's getting a breath of fresh air. It's just getting away from, you know, our bubble and the quarantine, and helping us just kind of explore. Also find new hobbies during this time, because a lot of us are trying, you know, some of us may live alone. Some of us may have limited, you know, interactions with others. So what are some things we can do to fill this time that we're not able to have our normal lives? So find new hobbies, new things you enjoy, can help us kind of get through this time. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Jackie.
Yeah, no. And I think if there's a way to figure out how to do it with people that you love and you care for, you know, so maybe it's playing games virtually with, you know, loved ones, or reading books and starting a book club, or, you know, just different things like that. So you're finding some new hobby and also connecting with other people, I think can be really good.
Exactly. My brother-in-law is starting to bake bread every week, and he goes and delivers it to family members. And that's just been his new hobby. He's like, I never had time to bake bread. And now it's just something that sounds so simple, but it's filling his time and making him, you know, help others too. Making a plan for the next month. So this is just a suggestion that can really help. You can look at this through different ways. I know some families have done like meal plans, just meal planning, because when we don't have a sense of where things are going to be in a month, and our lives are completely different, trying to plan things that we can control, budgeting our money. You know, a lot of us could be struggling with finances and money, looking for different activities that are safe and that we can do, setting goals, just trying to set some plans that really helps us get through the uncertain times right now. to overall, and this is something just to keep in mind for not only ourselves, but the people we work with, for our family members, letting people know it's okay to seek professional help during this time. Fortunately, our state and society has made it a lot easier right now to seek professional help, and that's okay, especially through this crisis. I know personal friends and family members who have seeked out, assistance from their doctors with different, if medication or treatment or therapy, even though therapy is different right now through teletherapy. But it's okay to seek that professional help to help us get through this crisis, because we really are going through a traumatic time, and that can affect us like very, in many different ways. So just knowing it's okay to seek that professional help and normalizing that, like it's okay to need that extra help to get through this time.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about too, bringing this back to our families, I think we're a little over time. We started a little late. Do we want to just quickly go through?
We're good. Yeah.
If you need to sign off, we understand. But we're a little past our time, just a couple more minutes, bringing this back to our families. Some of us may have families within our house that we're living with, our immediate families. Some of us may live alone, and some of us may have extended families that we're trying to support in different ways. And this makes it very difficult. A lot of us are feeling very stuck inside our home with our families. I know I have 2 young kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and some days are really difficult being stuck inside with 2 young kids. But then I also have extended family. I have older family members that are very at risk for this and have health issues. And so it's how do we help those family members as well? It's just so difficult trying to support whatever our families may be, extended, immediate. With kids and youth, it's important to remember, so our own kids or just our family members' kids or kids in our neighborhood or kids we work with, kids are going to react to this very differently. We may not think that even young kids can kind of understand this, but they really are, they're not able to process the stress and trauma the same way we are. So they may respond in very different ways. They're going to have a lot of behavioral changes. They may react, they may have more anxiety. There may be more temper tantrums. They may get more just difficult, I guess is the word to say. Older kids may just get more temperamental. They may not, just be more angry. So kids are going to have much difference in behaviors than we would as adults. They can't cope with this the same way that we can. So just expect that and know that that's normal. I think checking in with our family members, not just checking in like, how's it going, but checking in, like letting them know, like, this is difficult, what we're going through. How is this affecting you? How are you doing? How can I help you? Or can I help you even from afar? It's very difficult. I think a lot of us feel helpless that we see our family members or see people we love to help them through this, but just checking in with them frequently, I think is really important. Like Jackie checked in with the grocery store worker, and that meant a lot to him. So not even our family members, our friends, people in our neighborhood, just really checking in with them.
And I think it's important too to point out that there's a lot of financial challenges for people in all of this. And there may be some embarrassment around that. And so I think that, checking in on people, there was an article that talked about a food bank in Vegas, and people were coming up in Hummers and these fancy cars, because they had some sort of business where they would rent out these cars for people, tourists and stuff, as they travel around Vegas. But now they have no money. And so they're driving these fancy cars, but they can't put food on the table for their families. And so just recognize, if there's people in your circle that need support, if you yourself need support, there are places, and feel free to reach out to us as well. And we can connect you with some different resources. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I also just want to add, I think it's important too, to recognize there are some people who are, not safe at home because of the relationships in their own home. There's a lot of domestic violence. There's child abuse and some pretty awful situations that are going on in people's homes as well. And so, feel free to reach out if this pertains to you, or to ask people, how are they doing? And really stop and take a minute to listen as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think too, validating, a lot of our family members are dealing with a lot of different various feelings, as we talked about tonight, and disappointments too. A lot of people, you think about right now, this current time, all the people that were supposed to be graduating, all the people, that are home from college, all the people that are, not able to celebrate different weddings, birthdays, all these things, our normal lives are just completely upside down. So validating these feelings within the people that we know, letting them know it's okay to be upset, it's okay to be disappointed, establishing routines. We kind of talked about that. And this isn't like, I know when this came, I tried to get a schedule going for my kids every day, and that went way out the window. It did not work because it was just not possible. I mean, we're trying to, it just wasn't possible. But even simple routines, something we've done that's really helped my 3-year-old daughter, just family, is we're doing movie nights like almost every night, pretty frequently. Right after dinner, like pretty early, we have her pick out a different movie to watch, and she looks forward to it every day. So it's just something simple, just having some type of routine, something to look forward to for your family members in this time, to help kind of create a sense of normalcy during this time. Being mindful that young kids can hear what we talk about. I know I've talked a lot about how stressful this is, the virus, and all of a sudden my daughter was repeating all the stuff I was saying to other people. So I know I have to be more mindful of that. So think about that. Make lists of activities you can do together. I know a lot of people are disappointed and worried about how the summer is going to look. The summer's coming up. It's Memorial Day this weekend, and all our barbecues and everything is kind of out the window. And just our summer plans, our travel plans, everything that we were supposed to do, just even seeing family. So that's going to be really difficult. So this is something I know I'm going to try to do with my family, making a list of things we can do together this summer that are safe, that we, things we can do, and keeping that list and having our kids and our family members kind of use that list of things that we can do together. Because that's going to be difficult. The summer's going to look a lot different for a lot of us. Some too, this is very difficult day to day. Some days it feels, I'll be honest, very impossible and draining to be, going through this with kids and family members. And sometimes we need to take the path of least resistance. And what that means is, we just have to survive through this. That's what, the goal is to stay sane and safe through this. So as I have told many people, like you would be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. I'm not going to tell you how much screen time my daughter and son have had. My 1-year-old son, like all of a sudden really likes, TV and shows, because we've had to use it more often than I would like to, I'm embarrassed to say, but it's what can help me get through some of this with working and balancing everything. And so sometimes we just have to take the path of least resistance with our families and just do whatever works for us, knowing that this hopefully is temporary. It's going to be temporary. We don't know how long we're in the situation, but knowing that that's okay. We just have to do what we can to stay safe and to stay sane. And this all requires like a lot of patience, a lot of endurance, giving our family members grace. I know, even with our extended family members, people may be reacting in much different ways than us. I think also recognizing that, like, we may be reacting in different ways and it affects us all differently. So being aware of that and knowing, giving others grace as well within our family, I think can really be helpful. Help us kind of get through this, giving ourselves that and other people. No.
Yeah. So we just want to, sort of end with that it's okay to not be okay, right? And May is Mental Health Month, and Megan and I are both counselors, but it's okay. This is a lot. This is a lot to ask of anyone to deal with. And again, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, no matter what kind of boat you're in, whether you're sitting in your house and, you have it pretty good, it's still difficult. Or if you are, wondering where food's coming from, people are losing their jobs in your family, or you lost your job, or there's, health scares, or you've lost people that you love. This is challenging, and we want to let you know that we are here for you. Youth Crossroads, we provide free counseling services to anyone who lives in the District 201 area, ages 11 to 18, and their parents or guardians. And so please feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to put again in the chat box, that's my email address, jacquelinew@youthcrossroads.org. Please let me know, first of all, your t-shirt size, because we want to give you a shirt that says something similar to "It's okay to not be okay." Reach out to talk to someone. So let us know your shirt size, and we'll make sure to figure out how to get that to you. But also, if you're able to give us some feedback about, what was helpful, what do you want to see more of? Youth Crossroads, we're trying to figure out what kind of content to push out and what format you think that would work well with. So please let us know. Colleen, also from Sarah's Inn, just put in the chat as well, the 24-hour crisis line. Sarah's Inn does great work over there. and they can really connect people with some good support through this difficult time as well. On the next slide, I just want to highlight some different resources. Oops.
Oops, I clicked on a resource, sorry.
So there's some different resources. I liked the article on co-parenting through COVID. It talks about how to, share a child in all of this, and everything from thinking through, schooling and physical safety and all of that stuff. To tips to keep calm at home talks about discipline, which I think, has been a challenge in my house. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old that are not always perfect. But just, all of this stuff is, Meg and I were talking about this earlier, there's like the normal stress of life and parenting. And then you throw in this COVID stuff and it just sort of magnifies some things as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We will have 2 Youth Crossroads counselors presenting a similar presentation to this on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock. So please follow us on Facebook to get more information about that.
In Spanish.
Oh yes, it is in Spanish, yes. Not only will it be better, but it will also be in Spanish. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Megan, for giving up your time. And just, be blessed and be healthy, and feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Stay safe.
Stay safe, wash your hands. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night. Sorry we went over time, but thanks for staying with us.
Yes, bye.